my name is Logan Walker. I'm 38 years old, a captain in the United States Army, and a man who used to think he had everything figured out. For most of my life, the military was all I knew. Structure, duty, purpose, that's what shaped me. But then Grace came into my world like a breeze on a scorching day. We met at a friend's wedding. She wasn't the kind of woman who needed attention, but somehow, she drew it without trying. I fell for her quickly, faster than I ever thought a soldier like me could. We married a year later, and 5 years after that, our daughter Emma was born. That little girl changed everything. She gave me a reason to come home, not just something to fight for. Our home in North Carolina wasn't fancy, but it was ours. A modest house just off the base, big enough for a swing set in the yard and a small garden Grace tended like it meant the world to her. Weekends were sacred movie nights, pancakes on Sundays, Emma's giggles echoing through the hallways. I didn't need much else. I used to watch them when they didn't know I was looking, just memorizing the way Grace tucked Emma's hair behind her ear or how they danced in the kitchen when their favorite song played. I thought I'd done it. I thought I'd built the kind of life most guys in my line of work only dreamed about. Sure, deployments were tough. Grace carried more than her share of the burden when I was overseas. But we had a rhythm, a bond I believed nothing could break. There was this quiet strength in her. She was the calm in my chaos. And Emma? She was sunlight in human form. I used to think, if there's any justice in this world, nothing bad could touch the three of us. We were solid. We were safe. That's what I believed. Right up until the moment I got the call. One call. That's all it took to shatter everything I thought I knew about my life, my wife, and the truth we were all living in. I was still in uniform when I got the call. The mission had ended early. We were rotating out, and I'd only just stepped off the plane when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I was thinking about hugging Emma, about holding Grace and feeling her laugh against my chest. I never thought the first voice I'd hear would be someone telling me my wife was dead. They said it was a car accident. A single vehicle, late at night, rain-slick road, no foul play, no survivors. I didn't understand the words at first. I stood there on the tarmac, surrounded by noise and people, and somehow everything went quiet inside my head. I remember asking them to repeat it. They did, and the second time, it broke something in me. The flight home was a blur. I don't remember who picked me up or how I made it through the front door. Emma ran to me, crying. I dropped to my knees and just held her. She was too young to fully grasp it, but she knew. Kids always do. I kept whispering to her that everything would be okay, even though I didn't believe it myself. The funeral was simple, military honors, like she would have wanted. I folded the flag myself and placed it in Emma's lap. She didn't cry. She just stared at it like it was some kind of puzzle she couldn't solve. The house felt colder after that. Her things were still everywhere: her books, her robe on the bathroom door, the coffee mug she loved that still had her lipstick smudge on the rim. I started packing things up a few days later. I couldn't stay in that space with her ghost walking around. I sold my truck, the spare car, and most of our furniture. I told myself it was for a fresh start, that Emma needed a change of scenery. But the truth is, I couldn't breathe with all those reminders around. One night, while going through her jewelry box, I found a key taped underneath the drawer. It was small, almost easy to miss. It didn't match anything in the house. I thought maybe it was for a safe deposit box or something from before we met. I tucked it into my pocket, planning to forget about it. Later that week, I opened the attic to check through storage. Most of it was old Christmas decorations and baby clothes. But in one of the bins, wrapped in a scarf I remembered her wearing last fall, was a small fireproof box. The key fits perfectly. Inside was a single item, a USB drive. No label, no notes, just black plastic and silence. I stood there for a long time, holding it like it might bite me. It felt like I was touching something I wasn't supposed to. Something she hadn't meant for me to find, or maybe she had, but only if the worst happened. That was the first moment I felt it. That tiny whisper in the back of my mind. Doubt. Everything I thought I knew about her, about our life. Maybe it wasn't the whole picture. Maybe Grace was keeping something from me, and maybe that something got her killed. It took me a few days to gather the nerve to plug in the USB. I don't know why I hesitated. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd find. Maybe some part of me already knew that once I heard her voice again, nothing would ever feel the same. The file was audio, just one. No title, no timestamp. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Grace used to help Emma with her spelling, and hit play. The first second was silence. Then her voice came through. Soft, tired, a little shaky, like she'd been crying or hadn't slept. She said, "If you're listening to this, I'm gone." There was a pause, a long one. Then she said she was sorry, that she wanted to tell me everything, but she couldn't. Not without risking both of us. Not without putting Emma in danger. My stomach dropped. I sat frozen, holding my breath. She mentioned a name I didn't recognize, then said he'd been following her. She thought she'd lost him, but wasn't sure anymore. She sounded scared. Not the kind of fear you get from a bad dream or a shadow at the window. This was real. The kind of fear you try to swallow, but it keeps rising back up. She said I had to protect Emma. That if anything happened, I needed to find the truth myself. Not trust anyone. Do not go to the police. She said there were files hidden somewhere safe, but didn't say where. Then she said something that twisted my insides. She said Emma couldn't know, not until I figured it out first. That I'd understand why once I saw everything. The recording cut off suddenly, like she'd stopped mid-thought or someone had walked in. I played it again, then again, looking for something, anything. A clue, a code, a second voice. But all I heard was hers. The voice of the woman I thought I knew. Except now, I wasn't sure who she really was. I stared at the laptop, numb. My hands felt cold. The room around me had gone silent. But inside my chest, everything was loud. My heart, my thoughts, the questions crashing one over the other. What danger? Who was she talking about? Why would she keep this from me? That was the moment the story of my life split in two. Before the recording and after. I couldn't sleep after hearing that recording. Her voice stayed with me like a ghost, repeating the same phrases in the back of my head. I needed answers, so I started searching. Through every drawer, box, closet, and bin, looking for something that didn't fit. In an old suitcase tucked behind the coats in the garage, I found a leather-bound planner. Inside, between 2 pages from years ago, was a thin passport, not hers. At least, not the Grace I knew. The name on it was Lauren Miles. The photo was younger person, maybe mid-20s, but it was her. Same eyes, same quiet smile. My breath caught in my throat. I flipped through it. Stamps from places she'd never mentioned. Belgium, South Korea, Colombia. The latest entry was from Washington, D.C., 7 years ago. Right before we met, I checked the expiration. It had expired just after Emma was born. There was no record of this in our house. No trace of Lauren Miles in any official document since. That night, I pulled out her old laptop. She'd stopped using it when she got a work computer, and it had been sitting in a drawer untouched. The password was Emma's birthday. I took it as a sign. Like she wanted me to find this, even if part of her had hoped I never would. In one folder, buried beneath school lesson plans and recipe files, was a locked document titled Case M117. I couldn't open it without a password, but the name looked familiar. It took me a few hours of digging, but I found a news article from almost a decade ago. A classified military incident. Several casualties. The investigation had been sealed. No public records of what really happened. Then, buried in a forum thread from a whistleblower site, I saw her name. Not Grace. Not Lauren. But a code name. Sable Echo. A former civilian analyst who'd tried to report misconduct in a combat zone. She disappeared shortly after. No confirmation if she was alive, no follow-up. My heart raced. The woman I loved. The mother of my child. She'd been living under an alias, hiding from something bigger than I could imagine. She hadn't just married me, She'd buried her past to keep us safe. And now, whatever she'd been running from might have finally caught up. I spent the next few weeks piecing together fragments of a life I never knew Grace had lived. Using what I found on that old laptop, I reached out to a former contact listed in an encrypted folder. It led me to a retired Army intelligence officer named Harris, someone who owed Grace his life and wasn't afraid to speak now that she was gone. We met in a parking lot on a cold morning, no names, no phones. He handed me a file and said she'd saved more lives than I could count, that she'd been a civilian analyst embedded with a tactical unit overseas. Her job was to monitor communication logs, track insurgent patterns, and look for inconsistencies. But what she found wasn't an enemy plan. It was us. Or, more specifically, a Black Ops unit running unsanctioned missions. Missions that weren't just off the record. They were criminals. Evidence showed the unit had covered up civilian casualties, manipulated drone strike data, and funneled weapons through illegal channels. Grace flagged the report. She escalated it like she was trained to. But someone high up got wind of it before it could reach command. Overnight, the files disappeared. So did two people she'd worked with. That's when she knew it wasn't a mistake. She was being watched. Harris told me she came to him in a panic. Young, brilliant, terrified, he helped her reach out to a DOJ contact who got her into a witness protection program. New name, new background. They wiped her digital footprint and relocated her 3 states away. That's where I met her. Not Grace Miles, but Lauren, the woman running from a truth too dangerous to tell. For a while, the danger quieted. She started over, got her teaching license, lived carefully, but a few months before her death, she started reaching out again, trying to reconnect with a survivor from the same unit. Someone who might have also gone underground. Harris didn't know why. Maybe she wanted closure. Maybe she thought it was time to come clean. Whatever it was, it got her killed. He looked me in the eye when he said it. This wasn't a drunk driver. It was a message. A cleanup job. The kind they make look accidental. I wanted to throw up. My hands shook the whole drive home. I kept picturing her walking around with that weight, smiling at me like everything was fine. Raising Emma, making lunch, going to PTA meetings, all while knowing one wrong step could bring it all down. She carried that alone. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she was protecting us. I thought I'd known her, thought we'd shared everything. But now I saw her differently. She hadn't just built a life with me. She'd built a wall around us, brick by careful brick, so the darkness chasing her couldn't touch the ones she loved. There was no anger in that moment, just awe and guilt. I was supposed to be the protector, the soldier, but she'd fought a war I never saw. And she'd done it quietly, completely, until the day it finally caught her. I sat in our daughter's room that night, watching Emma sleep, her hair curled across the pillow just like Grace's. I thought about the promise her mother made to keep her safe, and how she'd kept it, even in death. There was a moment, about a week after I met with Harris, when I thought about going public, turning everything over. The files, the audio, the names, let the world know who she really was. Let them hear her voice, see the quiet hero who gave up everything for people who never knew her name. But I couldn't do it. I kept thinking about Emma, about what that would mean for her, having the media dig through our lives. Her mother's face on TV. Strangers were debating whether Grace was brave or reckless. I couldn't let them touch that memory, couldn't let them twist it. So I made a different choice. I put in for discharge a month later, voluntary resignation, no questions asked. I told them I wanted to spend more time with my daughter, that, after everything, she needed stability. What I didn't say was that I needed it too, that every time I put on that uniform, I felt like a fraud. I sold the house, packed what little we had left, and we moved west, far enough that no one knew our names, but not so far that it felt like running. Just a quiet town with trees, good schools, and a rental with a backyard Emma could play in. I changed my last name, changed hers too, something simple, something no one would notice. The USB went into a lockbox I buried under the floorboards of my closet. Someday, when Emma is older, I'll give it to her. I'll sit her down and tell her everything. Not all at once. Not the way it hit me, but piece by piece, carefully, with love. She deserves to know the truth, but she deserves to live before carrying it. Some nights, I still hear Grace's voice in that recording. Not the words exactly, but the tone, that strength in her whisper, that fear laced with purpose. I wonder what it cost her to keep it together for so long, to smile every day with that weight on her shoulders. And I wonder how I never saw it. I used to think of myself as the strong one, the soldier, the protector. But now, I know the truth. She was always stronger. She saw the storm coming and stood between it and our child. And she never flinched. I don't wear medals anymore. Don't salute the flag or recite oaths. My life is quieter now, slower. Some days it feels like another man lived the one I left behind. But I'm okay with that, because I still have what matters. I tuck Emma in every night. I help with her homework. I watch her run barefoot through the grass and laugh the way her mother used to. And when she asks about her mom, I tell her she was brave. I tell her she was kind. I tell her she loved us more than anything in this world. And one day, when she's ready, I'll tell her the rest. But not yet. Not until she's strong enough to carry it. Not until she understands what it means to protect someone so deeply, you're willing to vanish for them. Until then, the truth stays with me. I'm no longer Captain Walker. I'm Emma's father. And I'm the keeper of a secret the world will never know.